You can feel it, the whispers in the air. Moonlight casting shadows that move on their own accord. A dark and tangible magic. Listen closely, for spooky season has come upon us. In honor of this horrific time, I have searched into the deep nether of my mind, hoping to find new Scape units that are appropriately scary. Now, Heroscape already has a healthy assortment of spooky themed units with ghosts, zombies, vampires, and even werewolves. And yet, I need more. There are many things that fall into the purview of being spooky, and I think Heroscape has yet to explore the full breadth of scary possibilities, both in unit design and ability. There's lots of scary options, but I forced myself to only 10. So without further ado, let's venture into the dark and explore these 10 spooky things that should be added to Heroscape.
Lies, do you hear me? Give my creation life!
Now, everyone has their own brand of horror, whether it's a slasher flick or more postmodern SCP entry, but I tend to lean more towards the classics. And you can't get more classic than Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein, that is. Currently, Scape is lacking the machinations of a deranged yet brilliant scientist, one who crosses the line of morality to pursue an unyielding tenure on this mortal coil. I think it'd be great to have a distinct version of Dr. Frankenstein for Heroscape that also combines numerous other mad scientist tropes together. I imagine that the scientist, who I'm calling Dr. Promethan, in reference to the original book title, as a deranged scientist from Earth's future, around the same time as Agent Carr and the Krav Maga. One who works in the deep undercity, looking to defy natural laws with both his technology and an irreverent ambition. I think it's a great opportunity to both touch on a time-honored trope, as well as introduce a potent non-combatant type of unit to the game. Give the Doctor low defense and attack, but allow him to add enhancements to nearby units, as in special powers, or even possibly bring back fallen heroes in a different form, such as changing their class to undead and diminishing their stats. As for which general he served, Vidar is the obvious choice, but I could also see arguments for Valkyrie or Revna as well. This mad scientist would allow for some unique mechanics in the game, and would fit really interestingly the lore of Scape, bringing a sense of much needed madness into the game. Thing is one of my all-time favorite movies, telling a tale of an extraterrestrial who could change its form to assimilate amongst some isolated researchers. Thriving on paranoia and deception, subversive shapeshifters are a definite one for me. These body snatchers have the ability to assume identities of their target, infiltrate unnoticed, and discard their host when no longer desired. I love to see this fairly common, yet currently unused trope come back to Scape. I'm imagining that this shapeshifter would perhaps be a failed Morrow experiment, a vicus amalgamation of adaptive genetic slime. As for how this power would take form, I'd love for this unit to be able to place markers on several of an enemy's unit at the start of the game. Whenever that unit is activated, D20 roll would determine if that was the shapeshifter who would take control or not. Wounding a marked unit would cause the shifter to be placed out on the board, but would need to be dispatched quickly before it changed into another familiar form. Again, this is a broad strokes pitch. I don't want to go into all the detail of how this power would work exactly. I just love to see a sense of dread and mistrust in an opponent, making it fearful to use its own units in their own army.
Yaga.
Residing in a bone-made house astride some gnarled chicken legs, Baba Yaga has always fascinated me. This witch-like creature from Slavic folklore is a combination of power and dark mystery, an enigma in a terrifying form. Baba Yaga commonly offers trades for knowledge, and is extremely fickle, as she might eat you as much as she will help you. I think it'd be great to have this figure in Scape. The whole Imogen style fits the fantasy plan of Phelan very well, as she can be an ogre witch like Urioni. I think it'd be very interesting to have Baba Yaga give boons to their opponents, such as extra stat boost or abilities, but in exchange Baba Yaga has the ability to inflict greater harm on the opponent's army. Baba Yaga also has great healing abilities, but usually only offers them when threatened. I think there's a design space for her to heal others when she is wounded. If there was ever a unit fit for Revna, Baba Yaga fits the bill entirely. A powerful creature who toes the line between dark ambiguity and powerful ally.
I was Jackal, Jackal high, Jackal high, high, Jackal, Jackal, Jackal high, Jackal high, Jackal, Jackal high, Jackal high, high, Jackal, Jackal, Jackal high, Jackal high.
Transforming from an intelligent man to a raving monster. You may assume I'm talking about the Incredible Hulk. But nay, I refer to its gothic predecessor, Dr. Jackal and Mr. Hyde. Jackal was a fictional scientist who successfully separated his good self from his bad self, with, let's say, violent consequences. I'd love to see this take form with an elven alchemist, with fragile stats, an arcane booster who offers strong support to nearby units, such as extra defense or attack. This elf, however, has a terrible curse, and after each round could potentially turn into a raving beast, with high durability but low morality, damaging all those around him. Currently, there are no units that switch forms in Scape by actually replacing the physical models on the board. Imagine a thin elf supporting its allies, and then switching into a very large abomination, dead set on killing all in its path. I think it's a very unique design space, switching a unit to a new one with both having very different roles in an army. But if the nuance of the ability could be figured out, I think it would make for a very interesting choice and thematic unit to include. Now, cryptids are a thing many people want as a spooky entry. But to be honest, I'm not entirely familiar with many of the creatures' lore. I was far too busy researching the annals of Russian mythological archetypes, so I thought I'd hand this section to my fellow spooky connoisseurs. Take it away, Hexhalla.
So, our take on the top 10 things of Heroscape that are spooky that we want added to the game, our minds immediately went to cryptids. And what cryptid is the best?
Well, obviously, we had to go with the man, the moth, the legend, Mothman, who is one of my absolute most favorite cryptids of all time. If you know, you know. So obviously, when it comes to Mothman, one of the things that he's known for is, being very stealthy, darkness of night, hard to see him, hard to find him. So stealth flying is an absolute must. Cannot have Mothman without stealth flying. Another thing that I think would be really, really important to give a character of Mothman would be high defense or a high defensive ability. His thing is hiding and staying away. Low attack, high defense. Something that we think would be really fun to see with Mothman would be some kind of interaction with road tiles or road spaces. If you're unfamiliar with Mothman, he is most commonly associated with the collapse of the Silver Bridge. So seeing some sort of tie-in with that, with road spaces and maybe water of some kind, I think would be really, really cool and interesting. Just tie his story all together. I think he would have a low defense and probably a mid-ranged life, if I were to guess.
A low attack?
What did I say?
A low defense.
I think he would have a low attack, high defense, low attack, and probably a mid-range life value. And again, I think I've already said this, but I cannot stress this enough. Stealth flying. Did you have anything else?
And he has to fit the aesthetic of Mothman. Pure black, shiny red eyes, really attractive. If you know, you know. Would he be buff, like the buff Mothman we have, or would he be lanky?
I do have a buff Mothman, yeah, don't I?
Don't say it like that.
But I think he would, yeah, Mothman.
Yeah, Mothman. Very
Wings, antenna, red eyes, pitch black.
Mothman.
Next on my list is a creature that I believe more people are actually scared of compared to any other spooky beast. That being giant spiders. These 8-legged beasts, while actually helpful, are designed to be inherently blood-curdling. Heroscape has some existing spiders in the game, but as much as I like the look of Sujoa, I would love to see an appropriately large arachnid to bond with the firelags. I also want the spider to be visually distinct from the firelags, and I think a large, brightly colored tarantula would fit the bill entirely. There's a species of tarantula called the Goody Sapphire Ornamental that coincidentally has Aquila's color scheme and a scarily cool design. Tarantulas don't use webs to capture prey, but they still make them to sense movement. It'd be thematic for the giant spider to lay glyphs like Xenothrax, which slow movement and allow for you to see the order markers on a unit's card. Tarantulas are hunting spiders, so it'd be awesome for this creature to have a pounce-like ability as well, leaping to its rightfully terrified prey. Causing chaos and mayhem, a squad of gremlins would be great add to Heroscape. While popularized by the movie of the same name, gremlins are a fairly modern myth, arising during World War II. Whenever mysterious outages or mechanical breakdowns occurred, it was attributed to the malignant work of these wild little critters. I imagine these gremlins hailing from Arboreus, the new planet, existing as small creatures that evoke a sense of chaos to the magical overseers of the planet. I would love to see them as a weak squad that oppose the opponent's probability, subtracting d20 rolls based on the number of figures engaged, and having the ability to remove order markers as well. Now, it might be a bit overpowered, but if they could have some form of water cloning, then that would be a great callback. I wouldn't mind that. Overall, they should really be just have weak stats, but have cumulative detracting abilities. The opponent should feel a sense of dread having to face the gremlins. Not because they are hard to kill, but rather just based on how much they'll make an opponent's plan fall apart. A heart and visage full of vengeful hatred. I'd love to revisit a classic Scape unit in a new form. Marsu Ice and Wine, originally revealed as a cursed red troglodyte, would be a great spooky re-release. The lore behind this unit states that 1, he is a cursed vampire, and 2, that he desires to commandeer great undead armies. I think an uncursed form of Marsu would be a great narrative device, and give us some much needed vampire support. I think it'd be interesting to have Marsu be released upon the destruction of his brother Cyprin, whether he be in your army or your opponent's, essentially replacing the existing Marsu in play with a much more powerful form. I think Marsu in his new form would be really interesting if he jumped from a 20-point filler to a powerful and significant force in your army. Perhaps as powerful as his brother, but with a bit more relentlessness in his approach. I'd love to see a vampire with a frenzy ability, and the option to take turns with either undead heroes or squads would be a nice added bonus.
You are no bounty hunter. You are death. And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. I'm death. Straight up.
And you cannot outrun death, only delay its inevitability. I think there's a great opportunity to have a powerful avatar of demise in Heroscape. Their take on the Grim Reaper. I'd love to see a skeletal figure, black cloaked and scythe wielding, relentlessly pursue figures until the end of their mortal coil. I see this as another unit from Arboreus, which like Rakchot, much like Rakchot. Whereas Rakshot seems more intent on the cycle of death and life, this Reaper would be focused on the finality of dying. I think it'd be really appropriate for this Reaper to mark an opposing unit for death at the start of the game, and if it ends a round adjacent to that unit, that opposing unit is instantly destroyed. Give the Reaper a slow move, would heighten on this theming, and add a sense of crawling death to this Reaper. You could also have abilities like Life Drain and Rejected by Death to make a really fun, scary thematic package.
The bones are the skeleton's money. In our world, bones equal dollars. That's why they're coming out tonight to get their bones from you. The skeletons will pull your hair up, but not out. All they want's another chance at life. They've never seen so much food as this. Undergrounders have as much food as this. And the worms are their money. The bones are their dollars.
And closing out our list, we have what many familiar with Scape lore have been clamoring for, the Skeleton Cavalry. First mentioned in Cypern's lore, the Skeleton Cavalry have been a dangling thread for over a decade. Skeletons in general are one of the most asked for units in the game. We have ghosts, which are reanimated spirits, zombies, which are reanimated flesh, but to complete the trifecta, we need reanimated bone. Also, while it is easy to think that the Skeleton Cavalry could just be horses, this is Heroscape where things can get a bit wacky. The Skeleton Cavalry could ride giant bat skeletons, or be archers for some much needed undead range support. The vampires are really cool units, have a lot of lore attached to them, and I honestly love to see them get bolstered and have some more support. Cypern, the vampire's biggest weakness is that he falls quickly when surrounded. Perhaps the Skeleton Cavalry have bonding with undead heroes when the heroes are adjacent to 2 or more units. There's a lot of possibilities. You want to make the vampires have a bit more use, but not make them overpowered. I also like the idea of heroes bringing more units back, and VC admittedly does have some great powers for skeletons already, through necromancy and bone forms, so it's great to steal maybe some things from them as well. Whether they be spooky, scary, or silly, Skeleton Cavalry just needs to be added to this game. Halloween. Let me know which spooky things you love to have added, as there were many I didn't even have a chance to talk about. Be sure to subscribe for more Heroscape content, and make sure you have yourself the most utterly spooky Halloween.